guys, welcome to my best of November post. And I had 5 books in November that I read and really enjoyed. I ended up giving 5 stars too. So it was a bit of a slow month. I will say I'm going to have a lot more books that I'm reading in December that I have given reviews, like really high reviews for. I know because I'm a little bit behind on actually posting my reviews right now. So some I've already read, but I'm going to be posting the reviews in December, so they'll be in my best of December post. All right, so getting into it, I have 3 books that I have the copies up here, and then 2 that I had to return to the library that I really loved. The first one that I really liked in November is The Girl from the Other Side, Volume 9 by Nagabe. And this is I think it's actually released in like a sign-in magazine, but it's pretty age appropriate for like all ages. And it's about a little girl named Shiva who has wandered into the other side where people who have gotten kind of this disease or plague turn into monsters. And there she met a monster that she named a Teacher who ends up taking care of her. And this whole series is very like slow moving fairy tale kind of thing, dark fairy tale kind of thing. This was a very pivotal book in the series. I'm not sure like how many more there are going to be before the story wraps up at this point, because Shiva has been separated from Teacher, and I guess that's all I'm really going to say. And you're finding out more about why people who are infected with these disease turn into these monsters, and sometimes the monsters eventually turn into trees. But if you're interested in like, I'd say the first few books of this is definitely kind of like a quiet fairy tale. But I love the illustration style in here. It's very well done, and it's very unique. And I also really just love the story and the characters. And this is one that a lot of people compare to like Ancient Magus Bride, but it ends up being quite a bit different. And it is slower and more deliberate. So my husband and son have stopped reading this series. They think it's just too slow, but I still really enjoy it. I just enjoy the artistry to it, I think, is the main thing. All right, the next book I read in November that I really liked is Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett. This is just a flat out fantasy. It's kind of swords and sorcery fantasy. It involves a thief who gets caught doing things he shouldn't be caught, and then he's tasked by the queen to go and raid this tomb for this treasure. You find out very quickly that the treasure is actually a fae man who's been asleep for a very long time. And they end up finding these like biomechanical pieces of this ultimate weapon, but they're biomechanical creatures that latch onto a single person as their master. So in this book, they're trying to go through and they're trying to find, I think it's 7 biomechanical creatures that make up this ultimate weapon. But there's a lot of like dungeon delving and adventuring, and the main character is just very witty and funny, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I have not read like a flat out fantasy that I've enjoyed as much as this book in quite some time, and it is the beginning of a series, so I don't know when the next one is going to be released. They haven't said, but it just is a really fun fantasy novel, and I enjoyed it just a ton. It is young adult, so it's kind of the age group is. So if you're looking for like a fun fantasy that involves kind of that dungeon delving adventure feel to it, that would be a great one to pick up. All right, the next one I read and really liked is a bit odd, and I kind of randomly picked this up through Audible Plus because they released the Audible Plus catalog, and it just looked really weird. And that is Fantastic Land by Mike Bakoven. This is just a weird one. So this is about a world amusement park called Fantastic Land, kind of like, Disney World or whatever, in Florida. Is built on an island in Florida, and a big hurricane comes in, and the kids, so it's meant, the guy who developed Fantastic Land was very into survival and safety, and so the park is meant to be able to be survived, and there's enough like food and water and safe places and stuff for a long time, because they knew it was risky kind of building this on an island where hurricanes often hit. So when this hurricane hits, the corporate Fantastic Land is basically telling the Red Cross and National Guard and stuff. Don't worry, our people are fine. What they don't know is that it's a whole bunch of 20-somethings and older teens in the park, and things kind of go crazy. These teens basically form factions and like fight to have control of things in the park, and it gets very like Lord of the Flies-ish very quickly. And there's some other mysteries going on in the background as well that are really creepy. So I would definitely say this is kind of like a survival horror book. Yeah, I don't know. It's just really weird. The premise sounds insane and crazy and maybe even a little dumb, but it was so well done. It's done as a series of interviews with like characters that survived the park or got out of the park. They even interview a family that was at the park before they got evacuated because of the hurricane. And it's kind of like this perfect storm of events that just makes this very improbable situation that you just would never think would really happen. So anyways, I really liked it. It was very unique, very engaging, and very much like I listened to it on audiobook. I would actually recommend listening to an audiobook if you listen to audiobooks, because the way the interviews are done are very realistic and very well done. I'm sure it would be fine in book format too, but the audiobook was really well done, and I just loved it. And it was one of those books where I didn't want to leave my car because I wanted to know what was going to happen next. And I just would like let's take the long way home today. So yeah, really, really like this. And if you are interested in like a quirky little survival horror audiobook full of improbable circumstances and weird stuff, this is an adult book. It is not for kids. It gets very graphic and gory at parts and quite scary. So anyways, that was another one that was really interesting. The last two that I want to talk about, I did have to return to the library. The first one that I really liked, and they're both graphic novels, was Snapdragon by Kayleigh. And this was just a fantastic, like, middle grade graphic novel about a young girl who's trying to find I think it was her dog or something that had gotten hurt. And she ends up wandering into the woods where supposedly a witch lives, and it ends up the witch is an old woman who actually works as a taxidermist and like finds dead animals and then like stuffs them and rebuilds their skeleton and sells them online. Again, sounds really weird, but it was a really good story about like family and friendship and kind of a weird hobby. Like this old lady has a real hobby, and the younger girl who finds her is super interested in the skeletons and animals and how everything works. So it's got a little bit of the sciencey bent to it, as well as kind of a little bit of magic in the end you find out. So if you're looking for a good kind of all ages graphic novel with a little bit of magic and a lot about family and friendship, and it's kind of quirky, Snapdragon was a really great graphic novel, and I know it is on a lot of people's like best graphic novels of the year. And it was really good. So if you're looking for something like that, I think it's one that adults and kids would enjoy. Really little kids might find some parts a little scary, but kids, 7 or older, I think would be perfectly fine with it. And it was just really, really well done. And the last book I want to talk about is another graphic novel that was really well done, and that's Displacement by Kiki Hughes. This one was just cool. It starts off with the girl and her mother going to San Francisco on vacation, and her mother wants to find the house that her grandmother grew up in, and they are of Chinese descent, so they were affected a lot by the stuff that happened in World War II, where a lot of Chinese people were put into internment camps. But this girl in this novel suddenly finds herself getting displaced from current time and ending up back during World War II time. And these displacements initially are very quick, and her mom doesn't notice she's missing or whatever, but then they get a lot longer. So then she's suddenly gone. She ends up being gone for a year, living through the whole getting sent to an internment camp and how it was to live in internment camps and all of this. And she ends up being in the internment camp with her grandmother when her grandmother was a little girl. So the whole thing was just really, really well done. It's very well drawn, nice, bright, colorful palette, very easy to follow. It was just super, super interesting. I mean, I know that people have been talking more about the Chinese internment camps, Japanese. Who's Japanese? I said Chinese. It's Japanese internment camps. Wow. Anyways, about the internment camps over in like California during World War II. But I know when I was growing up, it was not something that was regularly covered in U.S. history. It was kind of like glossed over. My son has learned a lot more about it, but it's an interesting subject matter. It was an interesting look at it, and I just thought it was really well done. Again, that is another graphic novel. This is on a lot of people's best of the years, and I would definitely recommend it. It's another one that's good for all ages. It's a lot of good history, some really good characters, a lot of interesting stuff about music because her grandma's a violinist, and about just family and, you know, trying to come to grips with like your past and what you went through and how that reflects on, you know, your current life and all that. So those were the 5 that I read in November that left a really big impression on me and that I really enjoyed. I know there's quite a combination from, you know, campy horror books and amusement parks to graphic novels about historical internment camps, but you know, you need a variety in your life. As I said, I am a little bit behind on book reviews because I did read a ton of books the end of November, and those reviews will be getting posted in December. So those will be part of my best of December. And there are quite a few that I really liked, so that'll be a much longer video and a lot more books. And I hope you didn't hear my son just yelling in the background. He is playing Terraria with all of his friends online right now, and occasionally it gets very, very loud. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my best of the month post, and definitely comment below if you had books that you read this month that you really liked. And with that, I will probably talk to you next week for a Stacking the Shelves, since I did get quite a few books for review late this week. So I will be doing another Stacking the Shelves post. All right. Well, have a great week, and I hope you got some great books to read, and I will talk to you later. Bye.